Anthony, you do a ton of great work for the natural medicine community in terms of decriminalizing other substances besides cannabis. And while I get this going, I'll let you tell everybody about yourself.
All right, thank you very much for the intro. My name is Anthony Caballero. I started the Psychedelic Club at UCCS. That I started with the intention to inform, to inform the student populace as well as anyone interested about the re-emerging use of psychedelics in our current society. Because, as we've learned, the D.A.R.E generation are just ignoring it. It hasn't worked out. And so I figured if we can educate people and, give harm reduction resources, and so that's one of our biggest things is we'd like to provide harm reduction resources. Just recently, one of our biggest, in my eyes, one of the biggest achievements we had was we actually had a positive on a fentanyl test kit that we gave out to the community. We actually found a positive. And I forwarded that to a news reporter at KKTV who said that she'll pass this along. And so, just that, just the fact that, I'm hoping that got to, the right people, but I also reached out to CSPD and let them know, because if you keep up with the news, there's a press release in Denver that made the fentanyl, everyone aware that it was in Denver. But the things that, the press releases that we don't see is that it's on our streets as well. And this was an oxycodone pill. And so, one of the biggest reasons I started the club was, I really want people to test their substances, because that's the best way to go about it. Do your research and test your substances. And so that's what we do a lot at campuses is you have meetings. And so we usually have bi-weekly meetings where I'll do a deep dive on a substance. So for example, if it's psilocybin, I'll just go through the entire history and then I'll show research. We'll, bring up the floor for discussion, opinions, and it's also, it's a cool thing since I've started it. We've had to be flexible because we want it to be a good space for people to come, and we actually had someone come in and just tell us about this experience he had, a very challenging experience he had on, I believe it was LSD, and this was the first time he'd ever told someone. And the look of relief on his face for him to be like, oh wow, these people, can relate in a way, was so it looked, liberating for him. And so just to see things like that, as well as people come up and just, be genuinely curious and, want to educate themselves, because, it's all over the news, and so don't let it be a mystery, reach out, get that itch out of your head, find out more, because that's the best way to go about it and the best way to stay educated. You don't have to be for it, you don't have to support it, but if you can educate yourself, that way when you see things on TV that say, ridiculous claims, I believe one of the deputy AGs said it was one of the most dangerous drugs. And we hear these things all the time, marijuana in particular is what was mentioned, but if we can my hope is that if we can show people the research, we can start changing the perspective. And that's my biggest reason. But I guess one of my precursors to starting that was, I served in the Army from 2010 to 2014 in the infantry. During that time, I was in 2011. I got blown up twice by 2 IEDs, and so I had a TBI, which is a traumatic brain injury, so just like a concussion. And so from 2011, I knew I had changed, but I hadn't. So in the Army, right, it was almost like a social thing. It was you go out to drink, right? You go out to drink to deal with anything, to de-stress, I'd heard about marijuana, I did it in high school, but nothing, it wasn't available to me.
Yeah, it wasn't available to a lot of people. Or so you mentioned the D.A.R.E generation. You had a bunch of kids who were told that if you smoke a joint that you'll you could die, or the claims were you're from my generation. The drug classes are ridiculous, and then for a lot of kids when they tried. kindergarten is. When they try cannabis for the first time and they realize that the health teacher was totally bullshitting them, then they assume that the fentanyl's not as dangerous and the heroin's not as dangerous, and you know, these other harder drugs that really are, and it gives them more of, let me rephrase it. It gives them less of a fear to try those things because they assume that the lies are going to be consistent with those substances as others. I remember joking around in my 20s with some friends. Something I said, it's like they shouldn't teach you not to do drugs in school. They should teach you how to do drugs responsibly in school. And everybody laughed, but no, that's exactly right. We're all going to be faced with these substances. I don't care what town you're in, whether you're in Denver, whether you're up in the mountains in Guffey, or whether you're in Baltimore City. You're going to come across the same substances, and you need to know exactly what they're going to do to you, what they may not do to you, the harm they may cause, and the help, the benefit you might get from it.